There are moments in life when we feel something is about to happen. The air seems heavier, as if an invisible promise were suspended right in front of us. Have you ever felt that? The sense of being one step away from achieving something, and at the same time, silent thoughts begin whispering doubts. What if it doesn't work? What if I don't deserve it? What if it's too late? These whispers are not random. They appear precisely when we are closest to victory. Imagine a miner digging, and giving up just an inch away from a diamond mine. So often, it's exactly there, in the moment right before the gold, that the inner shadow rises to test us. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist who devoted his life to exploring the mysteries of the human soul, called this force the shadow, the forgotten, rejected, yet living part of our unconscious. It is not an external enemy, not a demon in the literal sense, but an inner adversary that emerges when we are about to cross a threshold of transformation. In this video, we will walk together through this symbolic territory. I'll show you how to recognize this shadow, how to pass through the trials of the unconscious, and how to align feelings and thoughts to open the way to abundance. As you listen, allow yourself to imagine. Let the images stir memories, sensations, and symbols within you. And if you feel this content resonates with your journey, subscribe to the channel, like and share, not only as a gesture of support, but as a commitment to your own process of individuation. You are closer to victory than you realize. Let's take the next step. Chapter 1. The moment before victory. There is a moment in life when everything feels on the verge of opening. It is not yet full realization, but a waiting room, as though we stand before a door left slightly ajar. The heart senses change, and at the same time, the mind fills with opposing voices. It's at this threshold that many give up, mistaking the obstacle for failure, when in truth it is only the final test. The image of the miner who digs until he is exhausted but abandons the tunnel just inches from treasure captures this paradox. He didn't fail from lack of effort, but because he couldn't withstand the pressure of the final moment. That instant when the inner shadow stirs most fiercely. Jung would say this moment is a collision between the conscious and the unconscious. The part of us that dreams of abundance and the part that fears losing control come face to face. In everyday life, this takes shape in thoughts like, what if I'm not ready? What if this success pulls me away from the people I love? What if the fall is even more painful than the climb? These doubts are legitimate, but when fed, they become invisible chains. The ancient Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal that obstacles were not enemies, but part of the path. The stone that blocks the road is also what strengthens the muscles when it is moved. So it is with the moment before victory, an obstacle that does not deny the achievement, but prepares it. Think of it this way. If you feel fear today, it may simply be a sign that you are exactly where you are meant to be. The butterflies in your stomach, the anxiety, the exhaustion, these may not be marks of defeat, but of someone standing at the threshold of transformation. And when the shadow rises to whisper, "Give up," it is a sign that the diamond mine is near. Chapter 2. The hidden adversary, the shadow. When we speak of a hidden adversary, we are not referring to some outside entity, but to something far more intimate, our own shadow. Carl Jung described the shadow as the collection of rejected aspects of the personality, everything we don't want to see in ourselves, but which continues to live within the unconscious. This shadow manifests in many ways: sabotaging thoughts, irrational fears, impulses that seem to pull us away from what we most desire. It is like an inverted mirror, reflecting not only what we hide, but also what we need to integrate in order to become whole. We constantly live between pairs of opposites, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine. The human psyche is a field of polarities, and the process of individuation, as Jung called it, is the journey of bringing these opposites together in a living synthesis. That means that victory doesn't come from eliminating the shadow, but from recognizing it as part of us. Many spiritual traditions express this truth symbolically. The concept of the devil, for example, comes from the Greek diabolos, meaning division, separation. It is the force that fragments, that divides what is meant to be whole. Within us, this separation shows up when we believe we are only light, ignoring our darkness, or only darkness, forgetting our light. Jung often observed in his patients that their greatest growth came precisely when they dared to face what they most feared in themselves. It was not about winning a war against an enemy, but giving existence to what had been repressed. Welcoming the shadow did not empower it against them, it integrated it and freed them from its secret tyranny. Thus the hidden adversary is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a forgotten companion to be acknowledged. When we allow this inner dialogue, when we let our contradictions coexist, a new strength is born, the strength of wholeness. And it is exactly in this crossing between light and darkness that we find the myth of the descent, the trial that all heroes and we ourselves must face before victory. Chapter 3. The myth of the descent. Among the many myths that speak of the descent into shadow, the journey of the Sumerian goddess Inanna is one of the most powerful. She, the lady of heaven and fertility, chooses to descend into the underworld to visit her sister Ereshkigal, queen of the darkness. But at each gate she passes through, Inanna is forced to give up a piece of her adornment, her clothing, her symbols of power. Crown, necklace, bracelets, until at last she arrives naked and vulnerable before absolute darkness. This story echoes in all of us. Before crossing a threshold of victory, life demands renunciation. It is not just about external achievements, but about letting go of old identities, beliefs, and masks that no longer serve our growth. Like Inanna, we are invited to shed the persona, the mask we show to the world, and to face our shadow with radical honesty. Jung saw myths not as old tales, but as maps of the soul. He observed that every process of deep transformation requires a descent into the unconscious, a symbolic journey into the most hidden regions of ourselves. Just as Inanna, who is reborn after facing death in the underworld, we too must let certain illusions die before we can blossom into a new phase of life. In modern experience, this descent may appear as identity crises, losses, career changes, heartbreak, or even moments of existential emptiness. When everything seems to collapse, it may be only the psyche leading us into a necessary descent, so that we may return more whole. Heroes, whether from ancient myths or from our personal histories, always face this stage. There is no victory without descent, no abundance without shadow. The descent gives us roots strong enough to hold our wings, and just as Inanna found in the underworld the key to her renewal, we too, when crossing our darkest nights, discover a strength we never knew we had. This is the silent preparation for true triumph. Chapter 4. The power of feelings over thoughts. We often believe it is our thoughts that shape our lives. We repeat positive phrases, try to control the mind as if taming a wild horse. But Jung and modern neuroscience show us something deeper. It is not just thoughts that guide our destiny, but the feelings that give them substance. Research from the HeartMath Institute revealed that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field about 60 times stronger than that of the brain. This means that when we feel fear, insecurity, or guilt, that frequency is far more powerful than any positive thought we try to force. A heart out of alignment can weaken 1,000 affirmations spoken out loud. Jung observed this in patients who, though fully aware of their abilities, froze at the edge of change. It wasn't a lack of logic, but a deep emotional block. One striking example was a woman who, every time she was about to accept a new job opportunity, was gripped by diffuse panic. In her dreams, a door appeared repeatedly, a door she never crossed. Jung helped her see that the fear came from a childhood memory of rejection. It wasn't the job that terrified her, but the possibility of reliving the pain of abandonment. The heart holds our stories, and each feeling is a vibrational code that can either open or close pathways. This explains why some people, even in adverse conditions, find creative and prosperous solutions, while others, surrounded by opportunities, always seem to stumble. The difference lies not only in external circumstances, but in the emotional frequency they sustain. Pause for a moment. Have you noticed which feelings accompany your greatest projects? Fear, doubt, excitement, trust? Share in the comments, because naming what we feel is the first step toward transformation. If thoughts are like seeds, feelings are the soil that receives them. It is in the heart that the future takes root. Chapter 5. Practical exercise illuminating the shadow. If the shadow is the hidden adversary and feelings are the key to destiny, how do we turn this awareness into practice? The answer lies in learning to dialogue with what we usually reject. Jung believed that the shadow does not need to be destroyed, but illuminated by conscious attention. Here is a simple yet profound exercise. Take a quiet moment, close your eyes and breathe deeply 3 times, letting the air in as if welcoming new life, and letting it out as if releasing old burdens. Imagine yourself walking through a soft tunnel, each step taking you closer to yourself. At the end of the tunnel, visualize a figure. It may be a face, a silhouette, or simply an undefined shadow. This figure represents the part of you that fears victory, that whispers doubts and fears. Instead of fighting, ask the shadow, "What are you trying to protect me from feeling?" Wait for the answer. It may come in words, images, or sensations. Write it down afterwards. This writing is a mirror of the soul. Now transform that fear into an ally. If the fear is of being undeserving, respond to yourself with a feeling of worthiness, recalling moments when you were capable, loved, supported by life. If the shadow reveals the fear of loss, bring to mind experiences of gain, of trust. Each time the hidden adversary appears, repeat this gesture. Listen, understand, transform. It is not repression, it is psychic alchemy. This exercise may feel symbolic, but it works directly on the subconscious. By acknowledging the shadow, you reduce its power of sabotage and make room for higher feelings. Try practicing this for 7 days and observe. Thoughts lose their weight when feelings begin to vibrate at a clearer frequency. Chapter 6. Protecting the inner field. After recognizing and dialoguing with the shadow, it is crucial to protect the space where your feelings take root. Think of your heart as an inner garden. If the soil is fertile but left exposed to weeds and storms, the most delicate flowers will struggle to bloom. The same is true of our emotions. We must carefully choose the environments, people, and symbols that feed our souls. Jung said that the psyche is influenced not only by the inner world, but also by the forces that surround us. How many times have you entered a room and without a word spoken, felt the weight of the atmosphere, or been near someone and left feeling lighter, as if infused with vitality? This happens because emotions are contagious, circulating like invisible fragrances. The Stoics also taught about this vigilance. Epictetus reminded us that while we cannot control everything that happens, we can always choose how we react and to whom we give our attention. Wisdom lies in cultivating what strengthens our integrity, and when needed, stepping away from what drains our vital force. In practice, protecting the inner field may mean small choices. Listening to music that uplifts, surrounding yourself with encouraging people, spending time in inspiring places. It may also mean saying no to conversations that only spread fear, news that feeds scarcity, or relationships that drain energy. Each choice is like placing a fence around the garden of the soul, not to isolate yourself, but to allow beauty to flourish. You can imagine this care as lighting a flame within an inner temple. This flame needs oxygen, but also protection against strong winds. By becoming the guardian of your emotional space, you transform feelings into allies and create a vibrational field that attracts opportunities in resonance. The inner garden blooms when we consciously choose what we allow in. Chapter 7. Mastering Destiny Through Integration. True victory does not happen when we eliminate the shadow, but when we learn to integrate it into our being. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of uniting the conscious and unconscious, light and darkness, reason and emotion, until we become whole. In Jung's own life, there came a time when this integration could no longer be postponed. After breaking with Freud, his great mentor and friend, Jung plunged into a deep crisis. For years, he was haunted by intense dreams and symbolic visions that pushed him to the edge. He could have been lost in chaos, but instead, he chose to record each image in his red book, a diary of his inner journey. It was in that confrontation with his own shadow that Jung discovered his greatest contributions to psychology. So it is with us. What seems like a threat may in truth be a revelation. When we accept the shadow as part of who we are, it ceases to be an enemy and becomes a source of strength. Fear reveals where courage is needed. Doubt shows us where trust is lacking. Sadness points to what still needs care. Each emotion stops being an obstacle and becomes a guide. It is at this point that victory becomes inevitable, not because we have eliminated inner conflict, but because we have learned to walk with it. Life is no longer a battlefield of opposing parts, but a dance of complementary forces. If you feel that you are close to winning, remember this. The final step is not fighting against yourself, but embracing yourself in your entirety. The abundance you seek is not only outside, it is found in the deep encounter with who you already are. When light and shadow embrace, a silent power is born within us, the power of wholeness. And in that state, life flows with ease, bringing to us exactly what resonates with our most intimate truth. Conclusion. We have reached the end of this symbolic journey. We spoke about the moment before victory, that delicate instant when the shadow rises to test us. We walked through the myth of Inanna, which reminds us of the necessary descent before rebirth. We explored the power of feelings over thoughts, the exercise of illuminating the shadow, and the importance of protecting the inner field. Finally, we saw that true abundance is born from the integration of light and darkness. Perhaps now you realize that the adversary you most feared was never outside, but always within. The shadow is not an enemy. It is the guardian of forgotten potential. By integrating it, you become whole, and in wholeness, victory reveals itself. Imagine for a moment that you stand before a mirror, not just a reflection of your outer appearance, but the reflection of everything you have lived. Joys, fears, failures, hopes. Look at this reflection as you would look at an unfinished work of art. It does not need to be perfect to be beautiful. It only needs to be true. And remember, the final step is not to fight against yourself, but to embrace yourself fully. In that acceptance, the heart finds peace and life responds with abundance. If this video touched you, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who is also on the verge of victory. This simple gesture may be the seed that helps another person recognize their own strength. You are closer to victory than you think. And when you cross that threshold, it will not only be an external conquest, but the blossoming of a soul that has learned to dance with its own shadow.